The man across from you does not work for the CIA. You know this because you have been a CIA officer for 4 years, and you know how CIA officers sit, how they talk, how they hold their coffee, and how they watch a room. The man across from you does all of these things slightly wrong in ways that would be invisible to anyone who did not spend 4 years learning exactly what right looks like. He is not CIA. He is something else. You are in a coffee shop in Vienna on a Tuesday afternoon that was supposed to be a surveillance detection run before a meeting with a Ukrainian asset who has been feeding your station genuinely useful information about Russian energy infrastructure for 8 months. The surveillance detection run is clean, no coverage, which means this man is not surveillance, which means he chose this coffee shop for a different reason, and the different reason is you. He knows your name, not your cover name, your actual name. The name that does not appear on any document connected to your current assignment, your current country, your current identity. The name that lives in a personnel file in a building in Virginia that has no external signage. He says your name, and then he orders a coffee, and he waits. You order a coffee. You wait. He tells you he represents a group of people who have been watching you for 2 years. He says watching in the specific way that means assessment, not surveillance. He says your station's intelligence production in the past 18 months has been among the most accurate of any field station globally. He says your asset network is the most productive per capita in your division. He says you are being paid a federal salary for work that, if monetized at its actual value to the people who benefit from it, would produce a number with significantly more digits. He does not say who the people are. He does not say what they want specifically. He says he wants to have a conversation. You tell him you are not interested in having a conversation. You finish your coffee. You leave. You spend the next 3 days running every counterintelligence protocol available. You check for surveillance. You check your assets for signs of compromise. You write nothing down. You tell nobody. Not your station chief. Not your case officer. Not Stanley, who is your best friend from the farm and who is currently posted to Seoul and who calls every 2 weeks to complain about the food and check that you are alive. On the 4th day, the man is in a different coffee shop. Different city. Different country. Bern, Switzerland. You are there for an unrelated meeting that is on no public calendar and that was arranged through channels that do not produce written records. He is sitting at the corner table. He orders you a coffee before you sit down. You sit down. You have a conversation. Level 2. The first thing. The first thing they ask for is small. That is always how it starts. Not with the thing they actually want. With something adjacent to the thing they actually want. Something small enough that the decision feels manageable, and the money that arrives after the decision feels like compensation for a minor professional indiscretion, rather than the first payment in a transaction that does not have an exit. The first thing is a schedule. Specifically, the travel schedule of a mid-level functionary in a European ministry whose movements your station tracks, because his movements intersect with the movements of people whose movements matter. The schedule is not classified at a level that would produce a formal criminal charge in most jurisdictions. It is not the crown jewels. It is a Tuesday afternoon's worth of calendar information belonging to a man who does not know you exist. They pay you $40,000 for it. You look at the number in the account for a long time. You are a CIA officer making $83,000 a year in a city where $83,000 a year buys you a studio apartment and occasional good wine, and the specific financial anxiety of someone who does the most important work of their career in places where everyone around them is paid significantly more for doing significantly less. $40,000 is almost 6 months of salary for one schedule. You tell yourself this is the last time. You tell yourself this with the specific conviction of someone who already knows it is not the last time, but who needs the sentence to exist in order to take the next step. It is not the last time. Level 3. The network. 6 months in, and you have developed a second operational life that runs parallel to your actual operational life, with a precision that surprises even you. Your CIA work is excellent, better than excellent. Your station chief has mentioned your name in dispatches twice in the past quarter. Your asset network is producing intelligence that is informing policy decisions at a level 3 steps above your pay grade. You are doing the job you came here to do at a standard that would make the people who recruited you feel very good about the choice. You are also doing the other job. The other job pays $400,000 a year in payments that arrive in accounts distributed across 3 jurisdictions, constructed in a way that produces no visible pattern. The people you work for are not a government. They are something more complicated than a government. A network. Old money connected to old relationships, connected to old intelligence services that no longer exist in their original form, but whose institutional knowledge and operational capacity survived the political transitions that officially ended them. They are the people who were in the room when certain decisions were made, and who retained the leverage those decisions produced. They want information, specific information, not everything. They are surgical about it in a way that tells you they already have most of what they need, and they are using you to fill specific gaps. You fill the gaps. You do this with the same methodical precision you bring to your actual work, because precision is the only way you know how to operate, and because sloppy work in either direction gets you killed or imprisoned, and you have no interest in either outcome. Stanley calls on a Wednesday night. He is back from Seoul, posted to London now, and he calls from a number you recognize, and you pick up. He says you sound different. You tell him you have been busy. He says different, like something is different, he says. Not busy different, something else different. You tell him, Vienna keeps you on your toes. He is quiet for a moment. He says, okay, he says. You know I am not going to push, but I am flagging that I noticed. You tell him you appreciate that. He says, call me if something is actually wrong. You tell him you will. You hang up. You sit in your apartment in Vienna, and you look at the account balance on a phone that does not connect to anything the CIA knows about, and you think about what Stanley just said for a long time. Then you transfer the funds and go to sleep. Level 4. The asset. The problem with running 2 operational lives is that they eventually touch. Not dramatically. Not in the way that movies show, with the direct confrontation and the dramatic reveal. In the small, structural way that 2 things occupying the same space eventually do. A reference that overlaps. A timing that does not match. An asset who says something in a meeting that tells you someone else has been talking to your asset, and the someone else is not CIA. Your Ukrainian asset mentions a name in a meeting that he should not know. A name that lives in the other world. The world that does not appear on any CIA file. He says the name the way people say names they have been told to say. Not organically, not as part of a sentence, as a data point. Watching your face. Your face does nothing. This is something the farm teaches you. Your face does nothing under any circumstances in an operational setting, because your face is an instrument of the operation, and instruments do not have involuntary responses. You debrief the asset. You write the report. You omit the name. This is the first time you have directly corrupted an intelligence product. Not withheld information, not misdirected, corrupted. You took something that was true and produced something that was not true, and you submitted it as the thing you are paid to submit honest versions of. You go home. You cannot eat. This is a development. You have done things in the past 6 months that should have made you unable to eat, and they did not. This one does. You sit with this fact for a while, trying to understand the distinction. The distinction, you eventually decide, is that the previous things were about you. This thing involves an asset who trusted you with his safety, and whose safety is now something you are managing in ways that serve your interests rather than his. He did not agree to that arrangement. You call the number that connects to the other world. You say there is a problem. They say there is no problem. They say the asset is being managed from their side now. You say, what does managed mean? They do not answer that question. You understand what managed means. You do not sleep. Stanley texts at 2 in the morning. He says you awake. You text back yes. He says good, he says. Because I need to tell you something. I ran into someone from your station at a conference last week. He mentioned your name in a context that I did not understand and that I have been thinking about since. You stare at the phone. He says I am not asking you to tell me anything. I am telling you that I noticed, and that I am your friend, and that if something is happening that you need help with, that is what I am here for. You look at the phone for a long time. Then you type, I am fine. You send it. You put the phone down. You are not fine. Level 5. The handler. They promote you. Not CIA. The other side. They give you a role that they call a coordinator, which means you are no longer just providing information. You are managing the flow of information from multiple sources inside multiple agencies. You are not the only one. There are others. You do not know who they are, and they do not know who you are, and the architecture is designed specifically to prevent that knowledge. Because the architecture was built by people who understand that the weakest point in any network is the node that knows too many other nodes. You know this because you built networks for the CIA for 4 years. You are now inside a network built on the same principles. The information flowing through your hands is at a level that, if the CIA understood what was leaving through you, would produce a counterintelligence response that you would not survive professionally, and possibly not survive physically. You know this. The other side knows this. The other side has made calculations about the management of this risk, that you have not been told about, and you do not ask about, because not knowing is a form of protection, and you have decided to accept the protection. Your CIA work continues to be excellent. This is the part that is simultaneously your greatest asset and your most significant liability. You are too good at the actual job to be managed out or reassigned before you are ready. Your production keeps you in place. Staying in place keeps the access open. The access is the point. The access is worth the salary and the cover and the operational security that the CIA provides for free as a consequence of employing you. You are using the CIA the way the CIA uses assets. The parallel is not lost on you. Stanley asks to meet in person. He is in Frankfurt for a liaison meeting. You are in Vienna. The drive is 4 hours. He says he will make it worth the drive. You drive to Frankfurt. You meet him in a bar that is loud enough for a private conversation. He orders 2 drinks without asking and pushes one across the table and looks at you with the expression of someone who has been preparing for this conversation for a while. He says, "I know something is wrong." You tell him nothing is wrong. He says, "I have known you since the farm." He says, "I know what nothing is wrong looks like on you, and this is not it." You look at him. He says, "I am not internal security," he says. "I am not reporting this. I am your friend, and I am telling you that whatever is happening, you should stop. Now, before it becomes something that cannot be stopped." You look at him for a long time. Then you tell him you appreciate his concern. You finish your drink. You drive back to Vienna. You pick up your other phone. You make a call. Level 6. The unraveling. Internal security opens a file on you on a Monday morning. You know this because the other side tells you. They have a source inside the counterintelligence division who monitors new file openings. The file is early stage, 3 weeks old. The trigger was an anomaly in your reporting pattern that an analyst noticed, a specific kind of absence in your products, a category of information that your assets should be producing that is not appearing in your submissions. The absence left a shape. The shape looked like something. The something is now a file. You have been in this position before, from the other side. You have sat in rooms and watched intelligence analysts build cases from the negative space of what was not there. You know how long it takes. You know what they need. You know the sequence. You have approximately 6 weeks before the file produces an action. The other side tells you they are managing it. You have heard this before. You know what managing means now. You call Stanley. Not because you have decided to confess, because you need to hear a voice that has nothing to do with either of the worlds you are living in, and Stanley is the only voice that qualifies. He picks up on the second ring. He says, "You again." You tell him yes. He says, "Are you okay?" You are quiet for a long time. He says, "Hey." He says, "I need you to answer that." You tell him you are not okay. He says, "Okay." He says, "Good. That is the first true thing you have said to me in 18 months. You are quiet." He says, "You do not have to tell me what it is. But I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen." You tell him to say it. He says, "Whatever you are in, the way out is through the front door. Not the back. Not the side. The front." You walk to the front door, and you knock on it, and you tell them what they need to know, and you let the consequences be what they are, because the alternative is not living, it is the performance of living. And I have been watching you perform for 18 months, and it is not you. You are quiet for a very long time. He says, "I am your friend," he says. "I am going to be your friend on the other side of whatever this is. But you have to get to the other side." You hang up. You sit in your apartment. You look at both phones. You pick up the right one. Level 7. The accounting. You sit in a room in a building in Vienna that belongs to the CIA's counterintelligence division, and you talk for 11 hours. Everything. The coffee shop in Vienna, the first schedule, the $40,000, the accounts, the assets, the coordinator role, the information that left through you, and where it went, and what it connected to, and who gave it to you, and what they asked for in return. You give them the architecture. Not because you are heroic, because you are cornered, and because Stanley said through the front door, and because the alternative is the other side deciding you are a liability, and you know exactly what that looks like. The interrogators are professional. They do not perform anger. They ask questions and record answers and ask follow-up questions, and the precision of the follow-up questions tells you they already know more than you thought they knew, and that the 11 hours is partly filling gaps, and partly confirming things, and partly watching how you fill the gaps to understand how much of what you fill them with is true. You fill them with everything. After 11 hours, they put you in a room with a woman from the Department of Justice and a man who does not introduce himself. The man who does not introduce himself says your cooperation is noted. He says the network you have described is of significant value to the counterintelligence mission. He says there are options. The options are not good options. They are options in the way that the available items at the end of a clearance sale are options. The best available among what remains. You take the best available option. You will cooperate fully with the ongoing investigation. You will produce everything you know about the network, the contacts, the architecture, the financial flows. In exchange, what happens to you will be determined by the quality and completeness of your cooperation, which means you are being handed an incentive to be exhaustively honest, which is the most effective interrogation architecture you have ever been on the inside of. You cooperate exhaustively. The process takes 2 years. Not the legal process, the full process. The investigation, the cooperation, the internal proceedings, the determinations, the outcomes. 2 years of living in a category that does not have a clean name, somewhere between asset and defendant, somewhere between trusted and destroyed, somewhere between what you were and what comes after. What comes after is a Wednesday morning in a suburb of Washington, D.C. You live in a house that is not remarkable. You drive a car that is not remarkable. You have a job at a security consulting firm that was arranged through channels you do not ask about, because the arrangement is part of what the cooperation purchased, and asking about it feels like examining a gift too carefully. Stanley visits on a Saturday. He drives down from New York. He shows up at 10 in the morning with coffee from a place that is not remarkable and that is extraordinary, which is the kind of thing Stanley does without explaining, showing up with the exact right thing as if he researched it, which he did, which is Stanley. You sit on the back porch. He does not ask about the 2 years. He already knows the parts he knows and has decided the parts he does not know are not his to ask for. He says, "How is the job?" You tell him it is fine, that it is work and it keeps you functional, and that functional is the right goal for right now. He says, "What is the wrong goal for right now?" You tell him pretending any of this is resolved when it is not resolved. He nods. He says the 18 months, he says, before you called, when you were in it. I want to ask you something about that. You tell him to ask. He says, did you know what you were doing? You think about this honestly. You tell him yes and no. You tell him you knew the technical facts of what you were doing. You knew the category. You knew the consequences if it went wrong. But there was a version of yourself that you had built, a professional version, a competent version, that was very good at operating inside that knowledge without being affected by it. And you lived in that version for 18 months and it felt like you, and it was not you. He is quiet. Then he says, I knew it was not you, he says. That is why I kept calling. You tell him you know. He says, I am not saying that to make a point. I am saying it because I want you to know that the you that is sitting here right now is the one I have been waiting for, not the other one. You look at him. He says also, he says, your coffee is getting cold, and I drove 2 hours for this conversation, and you are going to drink the coffee. You drink the coffee. It is extraordinary. You tell him this. He says, I know, he says. I looked it up. 3 reviews. All good. You are welcome. You sit on the back porch for a long time. The work you did, the things you passed, the people who used what you gave them and the consequences of that use that are still unfolding in ways you cannot track from a suburb in Washington, D.C. The asset whose safety you cannot account for. The products you corrupted. The 2 years it took to get to this porch. You sit with all of it. Then Stanley says something that you will think about for a long time. He says the front door was not the end, he says. It was the beginning. This is the beginning. It does not look like one, because it does not feel like one, but that is what it is. You look at the yard. The yard is unremarkable. It is exactly what you need. You are on the other side.